Yes, my family, blessed love, give thanks for your presence with us, glorify life giver and the keeper of life. Father and mother of creation, we glorify Negus and Agas. And give thanks to Madan, ELM, course, that is the Savior of the world, power and might of the Holy Trinity, Haile Selassie. We give thanks continually for such divine spirit and give thanks for such divine nature and even give thanks for this divine moment. I do say blessed love to each and every one. Give thanks for just continuing to stay with us. Coming off of a moment ago with the Tiger's Nest. Of course, you know you're in tune to Radio Anu. This is the international flavor, the universal spice. And of course, the reasoning continues as we are now in the zone of Rasta Roundtable. Remember, this is a program that comes to you every Thursday evening. That will be at the hour of 8 p.m. Eastern Caribbean time. Of course, myself, Honorable Priest Isaac, just holding the fort. And of course, my other hosts who are right here already seated. We have Ras Isern and of course Ankoma the Dread. And we should be having a special visitor with us this evening. So let me just say a blessed love to the full house, the full family. Blessed love Ras Isern, blessed love Brother Ankoma the Dread. Give thanks. Let me make sure.
Yes,
okay.
Blessed love, blessed to all ones, all listeners, all panelists, Rastafari.
Give thanks.
Yes, I give thanks. Glad to be here again.
Right.
Big up the listening audience and big up all the man them on the panel.
Well, let me just make sure all the audio is sounding good. No, don't look like we have no echo there, so we just definitely going through positive. Yes, family, I wanted to, set up this program here. As I said, we should have a special one coming in. Whenever he comes in, we'll just introduce him and continue with the reasoning. But I found, well, not just me alone, a few ones found interest in the whole aspect of the bloodline and the genealogy of kings and the genealogy of monarchs, not necessarily being a literal thing, but having a lot of symbolism and different things to it. In fact, I even came across some ones, I guess it was the level of the discussion we were having, that began to speak about some other things, some reptilian bloodline and all of that, but I was ensuring them I don't think that's where the brother was going. But of course, we would have heard of all these things too. But I don't think that's where the brother was going. I think it was more on a mythological outlook. But what I'm saying, more so, Brother Ras Isern, I want us to revisit that topic. Obviously, we're going to home in on the Solomonic dynasty and, of course, the emperor. But even before we reach there, I want to kind of rise the concept again, especially because it might be new to many ones, and even if ones were here in that other program that we did, but still to refresh them exactly what the angle of thought really is as it relates to this, royal bloodline across the globe and in certain areas that is not as literal as how they present it on paper. This is my father and that's my father and we descend from him the third and that man over there. I want you to explain it to us, Rasta Isern, as we begin this reasoning this evening. Rastafari.
Yes, Rastafari. Well, yes, the conclusion is just based on just all the information that we would have been exposed to. And basically just kind of piece everything together and really understand the nature of things. And by that I mean, when you check information like the presentation that Ermias put down before the Congress Library, they take information like that. Now, Ermias walked on the earth here and bear the prestige of being a descendant from King Solomon, King David. He bear the prestige. Everywhere you go, the emblem, the Lion of Judah, everything like that. And yet still, in a presentation before the Congress Library, he said, and the topic, by the way, of Lion of Judah, he is saying that these are mythology and you should not interpret them as biologically, historically, and so on and so forth. Now, I don't know how different ones view that coming from him. Mark, you bear in mind, he walked the earth bearing the prestige and get treated in certain manner because he's from that lineage. And he is openly saying that these mythological stories in the Bible, that they are just that, they are mythology. And they are set up for a different purpose, more symbolic purpose than literal. So even the idea, when you consider that now, then you have to ask yourself then, okay, so when they say bloodline, exactly what would that be then? What would that be? Because if in a biological, then what it is. But then when you really check the essence of this whole thing about bloodline, whoever the person is that is referenced, because David come from a father, right?
Of course.
And David's father come from a father. But when they go for talk about the prestige of the bloodline, in a start with David father, or even David father. It start with David. Now, why would that be? How it is that the bloodline only gain prestige at the point where David come into being? Well, if we observe the situation, the difference between David and his father or grandfather would most likely be that he was chosen to perform a particular role in terms of the administration of the law, the principles of the Most High that govern the conduct and function of human being. You understand? He was given that divine order to carry out. His throne was established in righteousness. That righteousness have to do with the upholding of those principles. You understand? So the real legacy and power of the idea of the bloodline, they really come from biological means necessarily. What the line stood for from a principle standpoint. And that, and when you consider that now, it tends to make sense because you can see how anybody can adapt to the universal principle. Nobody owns the principle. You understand? The law set out in the Bible, every man is admonished for uphold the principle and uphold the order. Some people do to a certain degree, and other people, the degrees vary. Some people just damn near excellent when it comes to it and so on. And so at that point now we call it actualization. Not necessarily that it was personally prophesied of for you as a person, but you as a person are the one who actualize, meaning bring to life the principle by aligning yourself perfectly with the order. You see? So the idea of bloodline, when you bear in mind that Irma used to say that it is not to be interpreted as biology, then you have to move on to say, okay, then how would we interpret this for this to make sense? And the way for it to make sense is the order, is the divine order that the Davidic dynasty, Solomonic dynasty is built upon. According to the story in the Bible, they were ascribed the role of maintaining the divine order in their rulership, in their leadership of the people. But the leadership, the idea is not personal to the Davidic throne. It is actually the order that every nation and every human supposed to subscribe to. Why? Because it's universal. You see, it is universal. This is the reason. So all what Ethiopia do, and I'm going to draw other things to you. What Ethiopia did, right? Through the creation of the Negas, Ethiopia adapt to that principal way of establishing leadership in the nation. That way of applying the universal principle, the righteous principle that bring about harmony and order and civility among people. You see, that our Ethiopia actually ascribed to. You see, so the bloodline is not biological, it is symbolic. But once the nation would have chosen that particular symbol, and that is registered, every single nation on earth is registered. Every one of them registered to be made official and have official recognitions and so on. You see? So, once the nation establishes itself on these symbols and these values, then it is accepted internationally, and the official of this nation would go about advocating according to the principles that they stand for as a nation, and it will just be accepted. There isn't a question necessarily about whether you actually come from the bloodline that you say come from. Because once you make the claim, nobody can actually disprove it. You see, if me put up my hand and me can claim and me say me come from King David, and me come with on paper with some bogus anything, and now me just assume, for the sake of the argument, that the paper wouldn't be something that me just type up together, really no official.
Mm-hmm. Hey. Blessed love. Oh, yes, I. King Uncle Madrid, you want just take over there? Just trying to get my guest here on the phone here.
All right, yes, I. Well, I'm following along with Rasta. It's the reason, and he's talking about the Solomonic lineage. Well, the program we're talking about, Haile Selassie, Solomonic lineage, if it's literal. Now, I believe now it are certain of the titles and the people inside it are literal people, of course. You know what I mean? Any more recent history part of it. But then I feel like in the future, Rastafari are ready to do the real academic, rigorous thing. I had to go through these lists now and basically do further investigation into the list, you know. Because one of the main things what I personally just check when I'm checking out the King's list was what Haile Selassie put forward, right? It is say, well, I know you know the part of the Bible where it just talk about Ethiopia, about the eunuch, right? Who meet Philip, that is Acts, I believe it's 8, verse, I don't know if it's verse 34. I ain't sure if you're familiar with that one. They appreciate you're there with I or
yeah, the book of Acts, yeah, chapter 8, yes, definitely.
Right. So now in that one now, you will say that the Bible is say that's how the eunuch of Queen Candace of Ethiopia, right? Now that piece of word sound is really is not Candace is not a personal name. Candace is the name Kandake. Is a kind of corruption of the name Kandake. which is a imperial title for the female rulers in Meru in Kush, right, in Sudan, because as plenty people has bring forward when the Bible and the Greeks and thing was talking about Ethiopia is a more specific reference to the state that was below the first cataract of Aswan or whatever. Is not really, at least, well, they're not really so indicated into the modern day Ethiopia, which adopt that nation name Ethiopia in a after time, and you understand what I'm saying? So even inside the King's list in Haile Selassie King's list, it have certain now plenty of them, those queens that used to rule in that time, and the name does have Amen as the root now. So it does be Amen Ares and certain. I had to draw close to my computer to really get the specifics,
Yes,
you know.
yes, I know, yeah, a lot of amen, and you're correct.
Right. So and what happened now? You had to try to synchronize the King's list and the dates so it does give so before and after Christ, and check, because what time and they saying the Philip would have been meeting with this man, it would have be like 34 AD or somewhere around there. So you could actually try to inquire.
Okay, I think we got a little quiet there. All right, Brother Anko Madrid. All right, I don't know what would have taken place there, but
Oh, blessed. Sorry about that. My phone ended up timeout. I did talking, and the phone timeout. You know, the thing is good.
right, that's just like about 10 seconds. Got you.
All right. So what I was saying is, we can synchronize with the Bible now and see what they're talking about when Philip would have meet that eunuch, who's our emissary, queen. They say Queen Candace of Ethiopia. But as we say in the Candace is not a personal name, it's a title of the ruler, female ruler. And she named whether be one of them Amenares were inside a Haile Selassie King's list now. So it have still value inside the King's list, you know what I mean, to inquire into certain to give context into certain things where you even see in the Bible. You understand what I'm saying? So it come like, and also that noteworthy because it come like that Ethiopia of ancient Haile Selassie and the modern Ethiopia come like they twining that as part of the heritage of modern Ethiopia, if you understand, because them Kandakis and thing is really up in these is historical people and not mythological people that existed in the kingdom of Meruna in Nubia and Kush.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Sure.
yeah, so same thing. I see in brother Rasta soon you tune back in.
Yeah, so no, but hold on now. So I get what you are saying there. You're correct, especially since you are kind of highlighting the importance for the family to understand that, as you mentioned, the Kandake, where you get the Candace and all the Makeda and all these different names really come from that one root, but that name is just like even the term Mary. Then even on that level, is Mary. You know, ones may say that it has a root in the Marie or the the ancient Kemet. But at the same time, Mary or Marie is not necessarily a name neither. They all come down like titles, even the Yeshua, because we already, you see, that's why we're doing them classes here, because we can look at it now on a very allegorical level. It's not a name again, it comes down like a title, that would apply to many different individuals who would have their own personal name, but history would stamp them as a Yashua, history would stamp them as a Kandeke, or history would stamp them as a Maria and a Mary, etc. So that's one level. And let me say we also have Ras Lazai with us, and I will bring him in a moment. He's not in the regular way here, like how we're in here. So I'm going to have to a little fabrication. He's actually on the phone. I'm going to have to hold the phone to the microphone and that kind of stuff. But when we get a chance, Ras Laza, who we call Lazai, will be stepping into the conversation. And as you said, Ras Iser has returned. So even Ras Laza would have missed a few things, I am sure, but we're going to bring him up to speed. So yes, brother Anko Madrid, I get all what they are saying, but now even how Ras Iser is putting it across, because even with the audience, they don't know, we want them to clearly get what is being expressed. So even before I even go to the Solomonic, well, we don't reach there, obviously, but before we jump back on that, certain things I just want to clarify. So this is why I want to look at the concept before I get to the particulars and we highlight the Davidic, because this is bigger. This according to especially how the brethren set it out the last time. This is an ancient concept that kings and nations would have applied, and even I don't know if they were listening to the Tiger's Nest before this program, but I started to, in a sense, dabble into some of them different concepts, even on an African perspective, where the ruler would see themselves as a direct descendant of the god. Now that is a criminal act, so there's some validity in the act itself. But where I'm trying to see now, so okay, like Empress Menin, they say Empress Menin is a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad as well. Like something like that then, with someone ones don't really happen that aspect there too often. And then even when it comes into the lineage of Solomon again and Emperor Haile Selassie I, how would that align to the king's list that even the king was speaking about a moment ago? Because everyone have to be related to someone, So yes, Rasta is in again. I know you didn't seal up fully what you were saying. So you can just seal up even harp on what I was just saying a moment ago. And Laza is in the house too.
Yeah. Well, as I say, it's self-evident, and perhaps that's a part of the reason why you just have to have this genealogy, because it's self-evident that you come from somebody. You understand? The thing is, before you actually set up nation, these weren't issues. Before you actually, human being actually create the concept of a kingship.
Yes.
You understand? These weren't issues. Nobody mean to keep record of who come from who. And no particular family line would have no particular prestige over one other family line and them kind of someday. You had man, period. You understand? With all that the Creator endowed them with in terms of potentialities. You see? Only when man reached the part now of creating concepts of kingship and nationhood and them someday, that idea about bloodline and so on as a means to claim rights and legitimacy for rule and so come into play. You understand? So if you talk from the purest sense, this is why I must say, well, then David had one father and he had a father. But the prestige of the line is based on David. Why? Because David is the one that the Almighty gave the divine order for rule in his stead, in his principle, by his order. And that will establish the prestige of that lineage, if you want to see. And they may start with David, simply because, well, they would consider David's status a superior one by being the custodian of that order than his fathers who come before him. You understand? But the whole thing is built on the prestige of the throne and the dynasty is based on their cleaning or upholding of those divine principles that will give them fame. If then I had a divine principle they for fame, then I have no fame. You understand? So that was established then. So me say now, when we understand how history and so was created, because nobody keep copious record from the beginning of man existence about who descend from who and what happened and all these kind. You know, in day, only when human being reach a certain area of thought development and consciousness, that certain things start to come into play. You see it? So I have to appreciate that in creating that history, that what the early man and them do are use mythological stories to establish that foundation. You understand? And then from that point on, whatever dynasty be, whatever lineage it is, the prestige of that lineage is based on what the person at the helm of that lineage defend principally in his time, according to the stories that them put forward. You see? I'm going to read a little part from this book here with Rushlin, just to talk about the same genealogy. This book here entitled Johannes Rushlin and the Campaign to Destroy the Jewish Books, right? And on page 19, he says, yeah, creating mythical genealogies that stretch back to antiquity was fashionable during Rushlin's lifetime, largely through the efforts of Emperor Maximilian I. The Habsburg dynasty traced its lineage directly back to Aeneas, this one Greek god, right? Aeneas, the Trojan hero who in the imperial Roman version of the same mythology ended his wandering in Italy, where his descendants established the great civilization. Rushlin would do something similar for Frederick the Wise of Saxony, creating a genealogy for the elector's family that extended back to Homeric Greece. Renaissance humanists derived pleasure from this kind of ornamentation. Contemporary culture, and here where the saying come from now, contemporary culture shine brighter when reflected in the mirror of antiquity. You understand? So this I show you that when them in set up these royal families and these kingship order in Europe, them set up these structures, that in order for have some kind of way of claiming legitimacy, them create these genealogies and so forth. Create them, literally. But the important thing is these are really principles. These are symbols and the values that in that first story our the nation is built upon.
And you say you believe Ethiopia get a touch of that too?
Yeah, and he evidenced to me by just the statement that Ermias made in that speech before Congress Library. Okay. He tell you that the mythology of the Lion of Judah, he tell you a mythology, a symbolism.
Okay, I want to
straight up.
I want to bring in Rasta. I know he wasn't here from the beginning of the program, so they're gonna just still here. Brethren, remember now I have you on a kind of speakerphone thing because we don't really have the right link up the way that we would like it to link up. But let me just pray that everyone will hear you loud and clear. Interesting reasoning, interesting discussion. I have a few things to say, but I'll just leave the eye to enter the discussion, my Lord, wherever you can come in. Ras Laza.
Blessed, O Rastafari.
Rastafari.
Praises, you know.
Yes,
Yes.
I.
Yeah, king and good night to the bridging them, you know. Bonga Sen and the next bridging there. Well, you know. Well, you know, I didn't hear the early part, you know. But give thanks and look at me, yeah. Bonga Sen, you know, I agree with some of the things in them that they really say. You know, according to how we really see the emperor and according to how we really see the bloodline of the king. Now, we must understand that every man have a bloodline, every man have a father, and your father have a father. So I'm saying now, we have to give thanks to Ethiopia for keeping such a valid record, because we all know that the whole of Africa was being, you know, corrupted by Europeans when they go in and do whatever they want. So, knowing that Ethiopia has been keeping that valid information, because, as I said, my father have a father, and Ethiopians have done a very good job in terms of keeping that valid information, so that people would know exactly that some of these historical events that we heard of in the Bible, that they are really true. Because it is even mentioned in the Bible that the Queen of Sheba did visit Solomon. And, you know, whether or not even name Solomon, yes or not, or wherever they may name, they have kept that information from that time, that they even know how much kings between Menelik the First and Haile Selassie. And I think it's even mentioned in the Bible that to just decide, well, you know, like you're saying, they're telling lies then, like they have made up the story, you know. And I find that to be very unfair for that valid information that has been kept, you know. Because even the Bible spoke about Ethiopia, even Psalms 87, you know, when he said this man was born there, and we are living in a time now where we see His Majesty have come and be the leader of Ethiopia, have interwoven Ethiopia into the League of Nations, where he was the only black leader amongst these killers, you know. And we saw it happen in World War II. So we know that His Imperial Majesty have done, you know, some superhuman feats even in these wars and so forth. And we know His Imperial Majesty is probably the only leader that has addressed the United Nations and the League of Nations. So history have shown that this man has been one of the greatest leaders, or the greatest leader that we have ever heard about in history. Where I know His Majesty said from his mouth that we demolish slavery, you know, with some of the laws and some of the precepts that His Majesty set down amongst these nations, you know. So we have to give thanks to the Ethiopians, as I say, sir. So I'll allow you to
But let me come in here before even anyone, because okay, true, give thanks for even such explanation too. I must say just a bit, the first half of what you said, because of little technicalities and we bringing you in a different way. Some of it went kind of blank. The first part, the audience was even saying so, but the second half of all what you said was extremely clear. And even though I think we kind of get the fullness, but now what I'm saying is that there's this documentary, Raslaza. There's this documentary that you would see on YouTube, and I find it interesting that in this documentary they have it's a 2-part documentary. It's about an hour long. It's from Faces of Africa. It's a nice documentary. It has some good accounts of the king, I must say. But in the documentary, the narrator says, concerning the Solomonic lineage, the narrator says now that the king, usually disavow this to dignitaries and special people, like disavow the whole thing about the meaning that he would brush it aside then as if it's not really something of importance. So what even Bongo Sen is bringing to the table, if you notice even in his expression, he said that in Europe he read something there, he's showing you the source, and I am saying that I know for sure in Europe they would have practiced such if you want to say, acts of creating their own genealogical line. So you would find any space at all that it could be a possibility that this was really done in Ethiopia.
Well, to me, that would be very impossible.
Okay, all right.
It would be very impossible because what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So we are descendants of slaves. We came here through the slave trade.
Right.
So for us to really search our bloodline to know our father, because I sure if I ask Bongo Sen if he know his great grandfather, he probably don't even know his great grandfather, or maybe 2 or 3 centuries back.
Right.
So what I'm saying now, there are certain nations who have kept that valid information.
Mm-hmm.
You understand, which is history, which is proven history. From father to child to father to child. So they know their genealogy, Ethiopian, and it's not just the Solomonic line it is in Ethiopia that a man can chase his bloodline way back,
Mm-hmm.
Like regular people in Ethiopia.
It's true.
Can tell you who their great grandfather is.
Mm-hmm.
I had a cousin living in Ethiopia for like 2 years ago.
True.
And I was listening to her quite frequently about what is taking place in Ethiopia and about the people. And she said, like, ordinary people can tell you who their great grandfather is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because I think, and I'm sure that I'm correct, that Ethiopia has never been conquered by any outside force to say, well, hey, we're going to totally take up all their records, just like how they do the whole of Africa.
Yeah, the rest of Africa. Sure.
Like how they do the rest of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the battle, that war that took place in 1896, where many defeat the Italians, that was such an important part of black people's history. And it's not even mentioned so seriously.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. So when they decided to invade Ethiopia again in World War II, after we know His Majesty made that speech, that song that Bob Marley sing unto this day, we know what took place after they violated the UN, the League of Nations at that time. So we saw World War II taking place and some of the interval moves that His Majesty did have to make to even keep Ethiopia as a free state. And up to now we can brag that they have never been conquered or colonized by any outside source. So if it wasn't for Ethiopia, then we would have been a people that we can say we actually lost. But they have kept the valid information. They know their bloodline. They know the truth. So for us to just decide and discredit such valid information, because as we can see, when His Majesty came as the Lineage of David, because it's not even so far back as we think, because 1,000 years past is just like yesterday, because when you really check from the time of even Jacob, when Jacob was about to die, when he spoke about Judah, and he said, Judah is whom the virgin shall praise, and the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the lawgiver from betwixt his feet until Shiloh come, shall the gathering of the people be. So it's from Judah down to Perez, down to Jesse, down to David, and there could be a few more in between there. And then as Ison was saying earlier, and that Jesse, he chose David, a man of his own heart, you know, to rule over Israel. As we know, the Israelites are the true black people.
No, I do want I give thanks, man, enough strength there. But I do want, even before even Sir and respond to anything, you saying, you know, I do want Brother Anko Madrid just to tell us in the light of what you're saying there, Lazar. The King's List, King Ankoma, the King's List. Where that King's List really lead us to? I mean, we know the Emperor talk about being a descendant of King Ori, which I think is some 4000 BC or something that gone beyond Solomon. So the King's List, I myself need a little brushing up on it. Does it lead to Solomon? Or if past Solomon and go to Ori, and how that really go? How it end up?
It does lead to Solomon because, as I'm saying...
Well, Uncle Madrid, I was asking, he had a King's List there.
Yeah.
The first person on
Hold
the
on there,
King's
Lazar.
List.
Hold on there, Lazar. Let me just see it. Got you, King.
I say any first person on the King's List, they have his Ori or Aram.
Okay, right.
That's what and they say in 4470 before Christ.
Right.
Yeah. But according to like well now I know have that in front of me, and I seeing that the ruler that they saying the rule with Gassima Tandake the sixth is what they saying who is the queen who sent the emissary don't thing that Jandaraba is the man name. Jandaraba is the eunuch name.
So that King's List there, although it start way before Solomon, it gone to Ori, but Solomon and his descendants and the Queen of Sheba whole vibes, that's a part of the list and its story. Am I correct?
Really, it have Makeda.
Okay, right. But yeah, we know. Right. So what I trying to say now, okay. So we know, right? This is the thing, you know, when it comes to Rastafari, just the other night I born in a chalice and I looking at Rastafari and I said, boy, Rastafari, just to use the term religion then our way of life, mystic, you know, in the sense that we have a living God. When I say a living God now, our quote unquote God is like, you know what I mean, pictures, video, audio, people know him. It's a kind of different thing than when you hear Christian or Buddhist or somebody talking about DSC. No disrespect to no one, you know. And I'm saying that to say now, hear my point, you know, King. Hear my point. We know Haile Selassie. We understand. They say no. Whatever person opinion is, Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie, as Raslasa was saying, his father, Rasmo Kenen. And his father and whoever going up the line. Where did the water get muddy? Can you have a long list of people? And the list carry us to Sheba, carry us past Solomon. So, and we know that the end result is real. Haile Selassie and whoever around him, even Hermias and so. We know the result is real. But because of our lack of, you know, as the king said, maybe slavery and a lot of things we've lost. So we can't see over the horizon. So somewhere it lose us, you know, in a sense. Somewhere with the sunset leave us. Where the water get muddy. If I was to read the King's List then, am I in a position to say, okay, right here is where the story stops. Right here. You see all them fellas going up here, none of them real. Go ahead.
What checking out here now is really and truly the King's List is not a genealogy. It's really a record of the king. It's a supposed record of the rulers of Ethiopia. You understand? So it's not like this one is this one son and this one is this one son.
And they may not all be cousins neither. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they may not all be cousins. They might have somebody come and take over or certain situations happen or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So
But it does add though. Okay, you're correct. I totally not respect to that point. But even as a list of people coming down a lineage of like about 4,000, 6,000 years, if that is intact and correct, it still adds merit to the argument. Eh? I don't know. I don't know if Rasta is
merit to which argument? Merit to which argument?
No, just the whole argument that because it's two things we're talking about now. A literal lineage. It's not a genealogical lineage, so I humble to that. I get you, and that was a very good point. But it's still a lineage of human activity. Then let's put it that way, that you can map people to people to people to people to people to people. So I'm just saying, still okay, fair enough. Where the legend begin there? Where did the history stop and the legend begin then? Because if Queen of Sheba and that whole thing is a legend, but we know the King of Kings is reality, and we see a whole story between him and her, somewhere in between there, the water get muddy. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if my point is clear. I may not know the point if there's a point. Not to say you're supposed to know exactly which spot, but am I theorizing this correctly?
I would say.
Yes, King, come in.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you come in.
Go ahead and come in.
Oh, okay, yes,
I just want to put in fast then that it's not that these things require further information. I give thanks for that. I give thanks that the king put out this thing here because it come like a giddy opportunity now for we to go and investigate some of these names and these characters and dig up certain history, but very unknown. You know what I'm saying? So that is where. So it has certain Nimrod in the king's list. Yeah, understand? It has certain all kind of different Kemetic name. It has name from different thing. It has man named Electron. It has man named Ethiopis. It has all kind of thing in the king's list. So it's a thing we could check out, you know.
And if I'm not mistaken, before you concern, what is Ori from Adam? Wasn't he the 33rd from Adam? Something. There's some kind of link with Ori and Adam, if I'm not mistaken. Refresh me a bit if you have it at hand.
No, I'm not sure about that fullness.
Okay, no problem.
I know it what happened now. It have. I want. Let me just give quickly then the divisions of the kings list, right? It had the first section come from it's a tribe or posterity of Ori or Aram, right? And it have a total of 21 sovereigns of the tribe of Ori. Then it says the second one is the sovereignty of the tribe of Cam after the fall of the Tower of Babel. So Cam now. This is the KHAM with the come like if it's Ham. You understand? Then it have Cam, Kutaba. It have a portion of rulers there, but this is where you might start to see certain Kemetic names inside of that segment there in the sovereignty of tribe of Cam. Then the third one, it say the Agdazian dynasty, the Agdazian. No, I never hear this people. You understand what? It might be something to check out. Of the posterity of the kingdom of Joktan. Now Joktan, I believe, is a person who mentioned in a biblical character. I'm too fully sure, you know. But it's saying of the posterity of Ori up to the reign of Makeda, 98 sovereign reign over Ethiopia before the advent of Menelik I. Then it have segment 4, dynasty of Menelik the first. It have a lot of rulers. It say before Christ 165 sovereigns reign.
Wow.
Then it's saying the part 5 is those reign after the birth of Christ. And then it have part 6 chronological table of the Christian sovereigns who received baptism and followed completely the law of gospel. And they have them from Abriha, Atzbriha, and then coming down. Then it say part 7, dynasty of Atzi, Emperor Caleb, until Gedajan. Then it have part 8, sovereigns issued from Zagwe, the Zagwe dynasty. Top part 9 chronological table of the sovereigns reign from Yakuno Amlak, emperor, and his posterity, all issued from the ancient dynasties which were raised to the throne. Part 10 elevation to the throne of Emperor Lebna Dengel and the invasion of Ethiopia by Gran. Gran was an Islamic ruler who did sack a lot of Ethiopia. 11 the House of Gondar. 12 sovereigns of Ethiopia subsequent to the foregoing list. And then it come up to Haile Selassie.
Rastafari. Aye. King, just give me a chance, let me I don't know, we want to make sure everyone get a peace trip before the time go. I would like to, because this is a learning session, eh? This ain't no debate club, this is really a learning session, and I think maybe because I'm very meticulous when it comes to information. So I just want to even, King Sir, what you think about, like that King's list there we just get now, and how the King break that down. And although this is not the subject, I know we talk about history too. Well, history is a part of the subject, because I remember once you had a reasoning on a radio show about the Ethiopian history, really not beginning too long ago. Like, I think you give it like about 400 years. I think it began with Emperor Theodorus, really. Some mystic vibes you were put into it. So now that extensive list there, although it is not genealogical, how do I look at that, especially with what I was asking before, where if we were scientifically to look at that list, would there be a point that we can say, you see right here, whether we know it or not, but you see right here, this is where the whole fairy tale begins. I said.
For me, that would be around Theodore's time.
And that's very recent at that, especially with what I was...
Yeah. But you see, when you go and you look into the history, right, of nation, when the concept of nation come into human life then, and it's something that happened very, very long ago, and everything included flag, the way how your leadership structure, where they have kings and whatever, all of that, some they make up very recently. When man create the concept of nation. Only when you create one nation, it becomes necessary for start talk about genealogy and differences. Why? Because claims are being made through these means for people who are jockey for the position of power. You see? So you have to look at stuff like that. I can talk about leader going into the infinity, but what kind of a structure them in a lead over in terms of the concept of a nation and how that's set up? What do you mean? How one man that makes decision? I have all kind of people like ministers like we have nowadays. Somebody rule over health, somebody rule over recreation, and so on and so forth. What used to look like? You see, we don't have those. Because the concept of creating nation state, I check that out. Anybody, people listening, go and look in, go in Google and go and research into the idea nation state, the building of nation state, and when this start happening. Because only when this start happening, that emblems and coat of arms and all these things were created for whichever nation they are creating.
Even like ancient Africans or ancient Kemet, you can call those nation states, Heliopolis, etc.
No, well, you see, once you hear how they use the Bible in particular, right?
No, ancient Kemet. I mean, like the judicial system that they say the West get from the laws of Ma'at and so that's what. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, yes, you have them kind of already.
Okay, just check it.
But
sorry, got you. Pardon. When it pauses so long, it's so he's gone there. Rasta, you want to say something?
Yes, King.
Got you.
Yeah, bless the Lord.
Rastafari.
So, the Virgin was given some history upon some kings that I think probably stretch even more further back than
Solomon.
than even the Solomonic dynasty.
Yes, I.
Am I correct by saying that?
Yes, I. Oh, right.
Okay. So, according to the Bible, there was a time when Solomon had a dream. And in the dream, he was kind of terrified as the scriptures reveal. We saw the sun stop rising at Jerusalem, and then it started to rise at Ethiopia. You know, and after the father talked to him and tell him, well, you know, at Ethiopia when we really choose, you know. So still no worry because your seed who have fulfilled such dynasty. So I'm saying, no, this is very important because remember the Bible even declare that the Ethiopians and the Israelites are one. So even these great kings, even before the Solomonic dynasty was created in Ethiopia, they were all black people. So it's actually, because remember, it's the lineage of Jacob we're talking about when they talk about the Solomonic dynasty. Which there were other brethren different from Jacob also, who came from the seed of Adam. So it is very important to know that the Solomonic dynasty was established in Ethiopia after a time. It was never there from the beginning. So the bloodline would only show from that time when Menelik the First, according to the Kibronegas, which is the book of Ethiopian things, which is a descendant of Sheba and Solomon, who was the first actual king who established the Solomonic dynasty in Ethiopia. You understand? Because Ethiopia has always stand out in the Bible where, you know, God is concerned. Ethiopians shall stretch forth their hands unto God, you know, and as we see, it come right back down to the King of Kings again. So we cannot overlook this history. This history is dynamic. It is definitely undefiled, and as we see, and as you were saying, Kibemi, as a nation of people where Rastafari is concerned, I think that we have more hope than any religious belief, because even unto this day, we really accept His Imperial Majesty and really know, according to the biblical scriptures, we know that the King is still living. We know we do not accept anything about any death of His Imperial Majesty. So even the Bible declares these things, even according to some of the things that we have heard from even our young time in Rastafari, where I can remember when Bongo Watu came here with the next elder. The next elder, I don't remember his name.
Not time.
I remember that elder saying to us at that time.
No, Bongo time.
When he met His Majesty in the early time, I don't know if it's when he went to Jamaica, I can't see. But he said they met His Majesty, and His Majesty said to them that in days to come, the monks out of the Botari mountains would come for him. And I always remember that incident there where His Majesty even revealed where he would be even in this time. You know, so as a nation of people, Rastafari, we have more hope than any religious belief, because we know Haile Selassie shall come from out of the mountains. You know, and even further scriptures where, you know, maybe I don't know if Aisha have delved into the Deuteronomical Apocrypha, where you have scriptures of where called Ezra, with a continuation of Ezra, which I find to be very, very exciting when you read these scriptures, because these scriptures are telling you plain out about the lion and what is going to take place in the time we are right now at the brink of World War III, which actually doesn't take place. So we know for a fact that Emperor Selassie is still living, and that will come from out of the mountains when the time is right. You know, so we accept that, we know that, And this cannot be contended with, because I can remember even a time when His Majesty had an interview with a young lady, and she even had the audacity to ask the king about, you know, how would he like to see Ethiopia when he passed on. And His Majesty got quite mad with her and even drove her away. So we accept the fact that His Majesty is still living in the mountains of Ethiopia, where we call Zion, you know, beautiful for situation, joy of the whole earth is all among Zion, you know. So we do give thanks for such history, and we do await the coming of the King. Yes, man.
All right, give thanks. Yes, family. We got sealed before 9:30, but I know the other brethren them have a lot to say, especially maybe after that reasoning there. Give thanks, Lazar. But I don't want to make the conversation even more complicated. Not that complicated, you know. It layered. It's a lot of good information, and as Ankoma Dread said earlier, them kind of reasoning here. Well, for a person that like knowledge, it encourages you to humbly go and check out your knowledge, your information more. You know, because I mean, I have ideas too. Everyone have my own opinion. You know? But you see, sometimes even when you gather, you have to come to the table with humility still, you know, because you don't know everything. And you're supposed to come like a child who's ready to learn and with an open mind. So I find this reasoning thus far been very nourishing to me. Definitely, I would have heard one or two things, that new ideas, which is always good. And I'm still on that King's list, you know. In fact, if you notice, we kind of switch from the genealogy to the King's list. We're in the King's list, have a bit of genealogy in it. And as I said earlier, if you can trace the King's list, even if it's not genealogical to the T, it's dealing with biological entities, human beings. Then let's put it that way. So there got to be some level of reality in it. Rasta Isa did get cut off there when he was speaking about the thing with Emperor Theodore. You see,
I'm actually here for
I know
one.
you know, I just kind of contemplating on that point, you know. I don't know if you want to continue with that point. We're going to try to seal up maybe in the next 15 minutes. Because why I say that, right, that will help the discussion. I know you're not just talking off your head. I know many people will hear you and say, man, what you say? How Ethiopian history can start for Emperor Theodore. Remember, Emperor Theodore is before Emperor Johannes, is before Emperor Menelik. And it's just a stone throw from the King of Kings. So it's not no long time story you talking about, you know. They say Emperor Theodore.
No. Well, I might not even say that the history start with Theodore.
Explain the part.
The question that I ask is where it changed from being mythology into being real life.
Fair enough. Yeah, man. Go to.
So I was saying, well, it is the time of Theodore. That would be that time period in my estimation.
Okay, quick. Before you come, I know you explain this to me already, and you cite your sources. But just quickly, before you go deeper, so you're saying that the history before Theodore, like all them Debla, all them kings and Dawit the third, and so this may have a touch of mythology to it.
It's largely a mythology.
Wow.
For the simple, you see,
the kings of Gonda and so, Lalibela.
Why in our simplicity, right, of thinking as just, you know, ordinary people out there that area now understand is how profound it is, right, for have them kind of story there as foundation. Then they really there for prove facts. Modern man all caught up with facts. But them some then have to do with facts in the way that we think about facts. They are conveying universal truth. So you're going to find a lot of things that said in these mythological stories. You're going to see parallel to these things in your real life experience. And you're not going to stop. Once time persists, that are going to be the truth about these mythological stories. You understand? But then really, them earliest one, they are not about facts. I don't know why we are so obsessed with who come from who and who come from who. can really inform us in any way about how we live and how we treat one another as human beings. You understand? I mean, when I want to trivialize on like have no value to it. But when you think about it, the obsession with them things they and want to nail it down point for point, it's futile like because they really not have no real way for us to prove these things. History itself as a discipline, it is a discipline. It was designed. There are criteria and so on in terms of what qualifies for history and what doesn't. And these criteria from the beginning of that discipline has changed over time. This is why a couple of programs ago, I referenced Leopold van Rank as one that they refer to as the father for modern history. Why? Because Leopold van Rank is the one that introduced certain scientific approach to proving certain artifacts and different things that people come for use to make historical claim. You're the one that create one system to check these out and verify them before you declare whatever to be history. So this thing a criteria for you to think in the way how we see history now in modern time. And then want to project that kind of thought system back into ancient sea. It's kind of different and it run counter to the idea that we have had thought development and conscious development over the duration of time of human existence. It run counter to these things and no matter how you feel, and no matter how you feel about things, you have to consider a lot of things about the very nature of existence itself. And then this will come a little bit more clearer to you why that this story could not be factual, meaning they actually happen. You understand? But yet still them hold value that I cannot do without. I can't take them out from underneath the foundation. Else I don't have nothing for standpoint.
Yes,
I mean, let me just touch one little point there. Laza mentioned about this interview where the woman was asking, I think it's Aliana Filaci, the Ethiopian journalist, was asking Ethiopia, he asking His Majesty about something pertaining to his death and so on, and he get upset. Now, in my early days, when I come across the interview there, so you know the reason why I think His Majesty was upset at that time? I thought it was because she mentioned about death. And that was because at that time in a hold to this meditation that God can't dead and I view the God literal as the flesh, as the persona of Haile Selassie. So when I come across the interview there and hear the expression of His Majesty, I might naturally conclude quickly, oh, His Majesty get vexed because she mention about death. And he can't dead, like he vexed about that. But the real reason why His Majesty get upset over the question is because His Majesty understood that in Europe and in Italy and them, they want Haile Selassie to move from there. Because the other people and them that they forgot assume a position of people that they know they can manipulate and control and sweep away the nation. And His Majesty very aware of that. So I like how them in a try to do it with Mugabe, them try running out today because they know that once he did, certain things now going to pass. So His Majesty upset reaction was to that idea, not the idea of him physically passing. Again, he have said on record, the Empress Menim funeral, that no man, to include himself, can escape the inevitability of death, physical death. He said so. Me not jump around, me not listen go, me listen what His Majesty say out his mouth. When I think he can get surer than that. And it kind of disturbing when the king has made certain statement clearly, I show you his humanity. and then we still go stiff-neckedly almost, and I say the opposite of what he himself confirmed. That kind of weird. I really I need to pay attention, really.
Yes, family, we have a soul seal. Yes, and come Madrid. Let's look to.
Yeah, man. Well, I just get some closing words, you know.
Okay.
I think the brethren last I what he talk about, it come like just like previous shows ago when I talk and I bring up about the king in the mountain motif.
Yes.
And he say the king coming back and he coming down off the mountain. You know what I mean? So it come like certain folklore kind of eschatologies and certain traditions would just keep reinventing in certain traditions, and you know. But as far as I would say with the conversation tonight, when we talking about the king's list, I wouldn't agree with Rasta saying that is up to Theodore is the historical part, you know, because it have only part of real historical people, Tekla Hymenot and Ayasu, different Johanneses and things going back beyond Theodore. Theodore is from 1855.
Yesterday.
Yeah, that's just the other day, a kind of way, you know.
But the other kings that you mentioned and Como, were they from the Solomonic dynasty?
Well, I'm watching on the on the screen here right now, right? It's saying before Emperor Selassie first, it have Zauditu. Before Zauditu, it had a period of Legiasu. Before Legiasu, Menelik II. Before him, Johannes IV. Before him, Theodore or Theodorus. Right, then before him, it had Sahala Dengel, Johannes III, Sahala Dengel, Gabra Kistos, Ayasu IV, Baida Mariam III, Gigar, Joas, Egwala Zion. It's a whole heap of people who's real people.
And they rank them under the Solomonic.
And yeah, them they is from the people who reign sovereigns of Ethiopia subsequent to the foregoing list after the House of Konda, after all of them they remember the Solomonic. When you visit people who's secular historians and whatnot, they will let you know that the Solomonic tradition in Ethiopia really start with Yakuno Amlak. That's what they would tell you, I believe.
That's right after Lalibela, right?
No, that before Yakuno Amlak is Idem Asagad.
No, when I say Lalibela, the Zagwe. Isn't it after the?
All right. Right, so it have the Zagwe dynasty. Now they say that the Zagwe dynasty, it had one named Judith or something. So I believe who was a more like a Judaic kind of persuasion or something.
Everything.
Yeah, and Lalibela is inside of that. Is inside of the Zagwe kingless. He's the seventh person inside of the kingless, the Zagwe dynasty. But after the Zagwe dynasty, they had the Yukono Amlak, and I believe it's from there is where the strong orientation to the Solomonic.
And just to come quickly, because as I said, we're not trying to pretend and we're not being too passionate. We just want to be realistic. It's interesting that that history as we know it now, as you just said, I don't know how many of us listening understand exactly what you're saying, but when I read history, it gives this verification that the Solomonic dynasty, like for example, the Zagwe dynasty wasn't an interruption. How I learned it first is that the Zagwe dynasty was an interruption of the Solomonic dynasty. It even went as far as to say the Zagwe dynasty was a Levitical dynasty descending from Aaron. I'm sure you come across that. But now, contemporary history showing that the Solomonic dynasty officially began after the Zagwe dynasty. I've been coming across that more often now.
That notion there. Yeah, so what happened now?
It's
It come like
interesting.
the implication is that it being anachronistically applied to previous. So the notion that our dynasty come from Solomon, then they say like it anachronistically applying backwards into certain thing. Now, so precise that as a man is focused on the history of Ethiopia
and you've been to Lalibela, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been to Lalibela. I've been up on the sites and thing in the holy mountains and thing, man. Joyous occasion. But what I'm saying is, when prior to Izana, they had the inscriptions. It have real archaeology, like coins and build like archaeological sites and thing. What basically have them hailing has certain leaders hailing up certain deities now, like other pre-Christian deities we had in Ethiopia. You know what I mean? So it come like and them and that's still within inside the historical period. It had the dynasties or the leaders of Aksum from around 0 BC time frame. You know what I mean? So these are all things where we have to synchronize to get a better context of what really happening. You know?
True, my lord. Yeah, family, I'm just looking at the yes, and someone saying that the Zagwe dynasty say that they from Solomon. Okay, Rasta said they'd come back in and just give me the last closing word before we give Lazar the last word. But it's interesting, the king have a speech where the king say, is the king? Yeah, even the king speaking about the Solomonic dynasty and other places, it speaks about it being unbroken from that time till this time. It's interesting, but I guess we have to go into the depths of all of these subject areas at another time. Rasta said, any sealing words again?
Well, as I say, if you're looking at this thing from midstream, well, the basic conclusion that been formed so far with much of these things, and I guess maybe from more so to what Lazar contribute would be the norm. You understand? But when you go back at these things, you find that the way how history and all these things come together is very different than we think. And our modern mind is more preoccupied with facts and what actually happened. Ancient man no be so preoccupied with that. You understand? So it's very difficult for one to appreciate what I try to say about how all these things come together with these genealogies and all these things, and the fact that most of it really is mythology, and it really just created for the psychological foundation. I don't know why that seems important enough for one can see the meditation still.
Rasta is saying, concerning we're saying, it come like we mustn't. It have real history as well, and it to lump it all in as mythology. Kind of like doing it would do it at the service now. So even like in ancient Kemet, and it have a record of the rulers and thing. These is historical people, separate and different from the mythology and some of the deities and the natural rule and them kind of thing. You understand what I mean? So that is where the little distinction is what we're trying to think. It's not like we trying to miss the point that trying to attach your lineage to a divinity is like a symbological thing, but it's saying it have a whole lot of historical real people, and then we're trying to detect which part it might start to bring in like legendary type characters and things.
Which really, as I say, me even find that all so important for every reason. I guess curiosity and so on, the curiosity of the mind, different ones would want to know. But as me say, me don't know why that also important, because what tends to happen, and I man appreciate what the man just said, by the way. and Como. What I man would be concerned about though is that whenever you interject that okay, this person or that person was historical, it tends to create a certain leaning on people's part towards still holding on to a lot of these mythological stories as real stuff. And if we understand how fundamental these mythological stories are, it's very difficult for people escape them. Because a lot of what go on in this modern time chase itself. Now that I have records and keep records, chase itself go back into these things, you know what I mean? But I do take your point that there is significant real history in the myth.
Sure. We got to break that down.
The point why I want to really, give that. But when you seal up,
no, make your last point. You make your last point. Uncle Maga, no, we have to see like kind of. But you make your last point.
Yeah. True. Go true.
Yeah, man. The thing why I was saying is the value in the King's List is not so much really in if it's 100% true or not, but is in the names that actually exist in it now, and then where's the origin of the culture of some of these name characters, and then it could give us a context now as to how Ethiopia accumulate itself into what it is now. Then you understand, because it has certain things trying to draw from Joktan and certain biblical type character, but then it have inside it people who from the Kush and from Kemetic names and backgrounds as well. Now. So from an academic or a sociological, anthropological standpoint, it have value in the King's List as I stated.
Yes, King, and a hard one there now to seal. Let me just give Ras Lazar I say him gone there again. Ras Lazar, give us a sealing word. I know you hear a lot.
Blessed Lord, give thanks, you know. Well,
yes, I
have to say, give thanks for all the information tonight, especially from the bridge in there. You know, and I don't know why I don't think that genealogy is important, but we do hold fast to certain information, you know, and I think genealogy is very important, because even the Bible has kept certain genealogy, even in the book of Chronicles, you know, where they try to show you, you know, how the bloodline really went. But all in all, yeah, give thanks to everything, give thanks to all the listeners, you know, and we hold fast to certain ancient order. You know, I think Iceland would understand, because probably he was there one time, you know. So we do give thanks, Iceland, you know, we don't feel no way, same time, but we just look into the information where you share.
Of course.
And you know, and also you can look into the information that we are sharing also. So give thanks, Kidemi.
Rastafari, man. Yes, I am. Now to the seal up here, I must say, family, give thanks for the love, you know. I had to stop here for got another great appointment I have to attend to. Hey, well, what a wonderful program, you know. And as I said, family, you know, even from the time we started this program, it's to encourage, you know, a certain level of tolerance too. It's to encourage a certain level of tolerance when it comes to information. His Majesty teaches us to seek for secular knowledge. We can't just be afraid and just hold on to our dogmatic religious ideas alone. We got to free up our mind and listen to different, you know, levels of knowledge and dissect it for yourself and see where it fits in and the reality. Don't be too quick to try to huff and puff and run away. So anyway, family, give thanks for your presence. Stay locked on Radio Anu. Some more good information coming in. What a wonderful evening. Give thanks for the Tiger's Nest and all that was done there. And of course, Rasta around the table. Hey, remember, of course, we're coming in on Sunday again, eh? Remember, we're coming in for sure. Don't forget myself and the Honorable Wes Moore for what is known as a welcome to the house of a priest. Yeah, looking to seal up, going into the sealing up strong. Yeah, for that 40 days and 40 nights of fasting, cutting and clearing, moving all obstacles out of our way. Keep it locked, Radio Anu, life giver and the keeper of lives. Selassies, Jah. Rastafari.
Yeah.